Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Francisco Otero from Avigilon. We are going to start. I'm going to give one more minute just in case, and then we'll get started with our Lunch and Learn. Today, we'll talk about PIV Class software. This is part two. I'm going to talk about a bunch of other things, other components that are in the PIV check, so we all understand a little bit of part numbers and watch order. And we'll go through that. So we'll start in 12:03. So I guess we get started. Can someone on my team just confirm audio is okay?
Hey, Francisco. Yeah, everything sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So thanks, Rob. Let's get started. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. I'm gonna do a very quick recap on previous session, just for someone hasn't, if we have someone here that hasn't joined that. It's literally just 2 slides, just to summarize things, and then we're gonna talk about the PIV class components. We're gonna dive a little bit more in that, some of the product descriptions, some use cases, and we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so quick recap. So here are the components, some of the components of the desktop software. That's the PIV class software. So you have a validation workstation. So we saw this in the previous session, right? So we have a validation workstation that ensures the card owner is authentic, right? So we're gonna go and check that card and make sure that that person is the rightful owner of that card and the card has not been revoked. It's still a valid card. Then the registration engine is the one who, after the card is validated and authentic, it will send the card information, that person's information, into ACM. So it's going to push that in there. We're going to cover a ID publisher a little bit more in details now, but this ID publisher allows you to bring information from third-party databases, authentic information, to the PIV class and to ACM. So it's a process. We'll cover that in details in just a little bit. So it covers that process. We saw this we saw a summary of this last presentation. So we're gonna dive a little bit more into some of these parts. The certificate manager, what it does, it runs behind the scenes after the cards are registered. It runs behind the scenes to validate the card.
Had a very good day.
Periodically. We have someone. Let me go ahead and let's see if I can. I'm gonna ask you guys to mute your phones. Thank you. Okay, so the next, and we saw this the last session. This is basically the end result of that whole process, where once the system is installed and configured properly, you can enroll someone into ACM by presenting a card to a smart reader, entering that PIN number associated with that card, and then presenting the fingerprint that is associated. So you'll see there's a little bit of variation here. You might or might not need the fingerprint scanner. All depends on the customer, all depends on that government agency and how, what kind of authentication they want to perform. But then once that authentication is performed and the card is validated and checks okay, then we can add that record that comes in. So the photo, fingerprint, everything is coming from that card. We can then grab that information and add that into ACM. So we have the photo, first, last name, the expiration date of the card number, and you could also enter some standard rows to give people access. Obviously, later on, you can go back to that record and enter more. You can enter more rows if you need to. So that's the option. And this other option over here, although it's not a whole lot used, it performs the same capabilities that you have on the desktop version. It's just a mobile application. There's this mobile device that allow you to enroll people into ACM. We don't see a whole lot of this. I haven't received any requests for that. Majority is desktop version. Okay. All right. So that's a recap for the last section. So let's go ahead and take a look a little bit more in some of these items here. So the registration engine, you're going to need, this is the part number for the registration engine. Okay, that's in our price list already. And you need one per workstation. So what this will do is allow you to register that credential into ACM. The registration also requires a smart card reader and a biometric reader, and this really depends on the customer. So for example, the setup that I have in my office is only two-factor authentication. I don't have a biometric scanner, so I just use a smart card reader and the keyboard in my mouse to enter in my desk, the numeric lock in my keyboard to enter the PIN number of my card. So that's one method. Now, if the customer, this government agency or whoever that is requires the three-factor authentication, then they're going to need a biometric reader. So you enter the card, put a PIN number, and put a fingerprint associated with that. The reader reads that, sends that information in, is authenticated, validated that yes, this is the rightful owner of that card, and then you let the person know, or in this case, register the card in ACM. Okay. So some of the consideration I think I mentioned, but already, but just so we are clear. You need to understand, first of all, is how many people we are registering in here, right? So based on that is where I'm going to decide how many registration or how many stations or workstations am I going to need. I have 5,000 employees in this building. I'm pretty sure one registration or one station is not going to cut it, right? So you might need to have in different locations, or might take advantage of using the mobile version. So all that has to be taken in consideration, right? Where the registration is taking place and how long it takes will determine basically what kind of device you need. But in essence, you need at least one workstation to run this process, and here's the part number right there. Okay. A couple other things here. So let's talk about now the ID publisher. So the ID publisher, the function of this part of a PIV class is to allow you, or to allow this government agency that already has data on their employees, on their card holders in a authorized database, is the ability to grab their information and bring that into ACM, doing all the validation processes and everything. The same way that you would do registering the card, like you saw in, going back here real quick, like you saw in here, right? This is my workstation where the person needs to present the card introduce the card into that scan in that reader, smart card reader, enter the PIN number, enter the fingerprint to validate, and then send that to ACM. So the ID publisher is used when you already have that information in a government database. There's different types of database. Some of them are down here. And you want to bring that information into ACM without having to re-enroll everyone in the system manually. Okay, so if that's not the case, then this is not applicable or is not necessary to this customer. And again, it's just a graphical representation of that. There's the external system right there. That's the customer system. The ID publisher, database, and certificate manager in the middle here. And then if that information checks out properly, then it will be sent into ACM, where I can go and do assign privileges, assign access to doors, and so on. All right. ID publisher, how to buy it. A couple of things you need. So one, if you need it, right? If this agency, if this has a database and they want just to sync that information into ACM, then you need one copy of that. And there is a couple of different levels in here. So this is where you need to work with the end user to find out how many people, how many cardholders, employees they have in their database, and they want to bring into ACM. So this can be, there's a couple of licenses here for 500, 1,000, or unlimited. So if I have less than 1,000 or somewhere close to 1,000, I would use that. Less than 500, I would use that. The most popular one, though, is the unlimited. So this means I can bring all the employees that I have in this database, all the cardholders, into ACM. If you have a redundancy system, you're going to see this throughout this presentation. There is a part number also to add for that redundancy system. So meaning this workstation fails, is dead, or something happened to it, I have a redundancy system that I can operate in a different one. Those are the part numbers. If you have a situation or the requirements for redundancy, please get in contact with us so we make sure that we assist you and get the right part numbers. All right, next one here, the certificate manager. A little bit about this. So what this does is allows you to check for those cards, right? So it's running there behind the scenes, checking the cards, and also checking this workstation. Is this workstation valid? Does he have the proper certificates to communicate with the government databases and sync information? So this is going to you're going to need this section, or this part of the PIV check. And here is the part number for that. Okay, once again, redundant system right over here. If not, then this is the item needed. If you're putting this together, we ask you to get in contact with your local SC for Avigilon, and we'll help you putting this together, all these parts that are necessary. Okay, here's another topic of that on that. Migrating from a different access control system. So the scenario basically is this. There is the access control system out there. Let's call the access control X, and is connected to PIV check, is performing those tasks. But now you adding, or this government agency is adding video, and they want a synchronization of their video with the access control. So they're gonna go with ACM, and we're gonna put a whole package together for them. So what do they need? Well, PIV check will stay as is. They don't need to change anything there other than the plugin. So each access control system that subscribes or has connectivity to PIV check has a specific plugin allowing the PIV check software to exchange data with the access control, or send data to that access control. And to do that, that's the part number down here. We need to apply a plugin specifically for ACM, Avigilon ACM with PIV check. So that's the number over there. If it's a new system, then obviously you don't need that. The plugin will go along with the purchase of the PIV check solution with ACM. All right. Now we're gonna get a little bit on the more interesting part, which is the hardware that goes along with this. So I put this in here. So there's basically two versions that you can utilize to make read a card from a reader, authenticate that information, and open a door. So let's assume for a second here that the scenario that we're presenting now is the card, or that user, that card holder, is already registered in ACM. So the authentication has happened. We already read the card, the information, the PIN, everything checked out. We grab that information and we add it to ACM, similar to what I showed you in the second slide of this presentation, right? So you have that picture of the person with a green check mark saying, yeah, this is checked, this card is authentic, this is the rightful owner, I'm gonna go ahead and add this to ACM. So all that has already happened. Here is the day-to-day operation when someone presents their credential to their reader. What happens after that? So there's a couple of things that we could do, and really depends on the agency, depends on the door. So you can see here, this reader has there is a slot down here, so you can insert the card, and then you can enter the PIN number here that is associated with that card. To then this information then will go to the PAM. So this is the PIV check authentication module called PAM, is a device that will read that information, and it will validate if that card, the PIN number is correct with the card, and if that card is still valid. So this device has its own network connection that goes out and periodically authenticates with a government agency and caches information in the card holders that I have in the system. So this device will do that and will authenticate that credential. So let's say, for example, that someone comes in. I'm going to give you two scenarios. Someone comes in here, presents a card, puts a card in there, and enter the wrong PIN number. When it does that, it's going to go to the PAM, and the PAM is going to refuse that, say, you're not coming in. And that information doesn't even make back into the access control. It's refused right over here on the PAM. You do have the option to go in the PAM and configure to say, if you get any type of invalid messages, send it into the access control, and we can generate an alarm on that, so we can go and take a look. So for example, we can pull the cameras after that. Let's say I have the access control and the video connected together. I then can pull the video or have a video pop up saying, hey, someone is presenting an invalid card or a stolen card in that reader. So you can go and grab that video, okay? Really depends, the level of authentication and things depends in what type of reader is added in here. And this is the part that is important. When you're designing this with an end user, you have to understand is where you're putting this reader. Am I going to put a reader that has triple authentication? So card, PIN number, and fingerprint at the entrance of my building in the most heavily trafficked areas? Most likely not, right? I would say don't, you shouldn't. In those situations, if it's somewhat of a low security area, I would just simply add a prox reader, not even a keypad. So the user, the card holder, will come in, will present the card, no PIN number, no fingerprint, just present the card. That card then is the information of that card is sent into the PAM. The PAM validates the card, says, is this card still valid, right? So I'm not validating, is this the owner of the card? This is a low security area, and I want to do this fast. All I'm going to do is present the card and then validate. Is this card still valid, is still enabled, or is this card being stolen or revoked? If none of that, so if the card is still valid, then the information is sent, the card number is sent into the access control, which then is going to say, got this card number, yes, this person can come into this door, I'm going to go ahead and open the door. Okay, so that's the method that you would use with PAM. So when do I use the PAM? Well, I already have my access control installed, Mercury, and I might have a 1501, 1502, or even a 2500 EP or LP. And I need now this government agency now is asking me to provide a more secure solution. So in that case, I don't have to replace the Mercury hardware. All I'm going to do is add the PAM, and the proper reader to support that authentication method needed by that agency. Okay, so that's the PAM. Now, for the PAM, you have two options. Oh, and by the way, each PAM supports 2 doors. So if you have, obviously, if you have multiple doors, then you need multiple PAMs. PAM comes in 2 versions. You can have with an enclosure, which is this one over here, has its own enclosure, or without enclosure is just a board. That's the one that I'm getting in here. Once it's ready, once I receive mine, as everything is set up, I'll have another section where we can go and see how that is wired, how it looks like, and how it behaves, and everything else. But so the one I'm getting is without enclosure. So here's the part numbers. Okay, all the PAMs come with 1 year support, which allow you to do all the configuration on the software and also the firmware updates. So any firmware updates there, you receive that for the first year is already part of the PAM, which is nice because it's one less thing that you need to worry about is when you're doing this for your first time. Am I forgetting any part numbers? Am I forgetting any features or anything like that? So it's much easier just to, is already included. Also be aware that we do have solutions that are in bundles. So we sell that in bundles. The bundles are cheaper. So you can have, if you get the reader and the PAM all in one bundle with all the software needed and so on. So we have different types of bundles. So if you need that, just know you have that and is available to you. So, okay, so that's the PAM. So now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, here's the PAM services. So once again, the reader services that runs behind the scenes, talks to the PAM, runs the proper authentication. So that is when you select that reader, what kind of authentication you're going to need. So is this just a simple R40? In this case, it's just card. I'm presenting the card. Card checks out to be valid. Again, low security area. I'm not interested in slowing the process down. So I have a lot of people. It's a heavy traffic area. So I'm interested in moving this along. Great. Just present the card. Yes, that card is valid, is not revoked. I'm going to go ahead and let that person in. Maybe down in that path or inside that facility, now I'm getting, I need to have access to the, let's say, the server room, for example, and that to me is a high security area. In that particular door, I'm going to put a reader that will ask for the card, the PIN number, and the fingerprint. So all that configuration, all that validation is managed by the reader services. So this will determine, will tell the PAM what level of communication, what level of authentication I need for each individual reader. Okay, so important service. Again, with the PAM is included already. If not, then we need to add a part number for that. And basically, here is in a nutshell how that whole process works. The reader could be different. Once again, depending what type of reader I have here, you will impact my reader services and what type of authentication and how fast or how slow that authentication is. But present the card there, authenticated by the PAM, everything checks okay, sends the signal into, or a WIGAN card number into the access control, which then opens the door. And here are the part numbers for that. So depending on what type of service of using the PAM, the service is already included, so you're good to go. Without the PAM, really depends in what level they're looking for. This is the part number. Once again, when it comes to that, make sure that you check with us because there's a little bit of different options in here. Okay. All right. This is the other option. So we talked about the PAM. So this module that you would utilize because I already have an access control system in place. Now, if I'm installing a new access control and I'm going to add everything in there, then the better option is the LP4502. So this is a Mercury controller that has the PAM already built in, embedded in the board. So it makes it a lot easier. All you have to do is just wire the readers directly into this board. Once again, same process here, 2 readers per board. If you need to do more authentication, need more readers, you need more boards, more LP4502s. Same process. With this board, you do require, you need to have your, you need to purchase the license for the reader services, and you then authenticate depending what kind of reader, what kind of credential, you will authenticate those credentials and so on, okay? Same process I described before. It's just one last component for you to manage or for the end user to manage. One network connection here, reader, and you present the reader, and depending on the authentication level you need that reader, all that will be performed. The board itself will hold the cache, will hold information in cache for those cards that are in the database, and it will quickly authenticate that, okay? The readers that are utilized in this board are different than the ones that are configured in the PAM, that are utilized with the PAM. The PAM is full duplex. These are half duplex. I have some of the part numbers, some of the things just later on this presentation. Okay, reader credentials. Yeah, I think this is pretty much it for this slide. Here is the license for the 4502. So this is the reader license for that, for the authentication module, right? So you get the PAM inside of that board. And this one also you can purchase in a bundle. So you can choose to purchase that, the PAM or the 4502 in a bundle, and then you can pick the readers. The bundles have different types of readers as well. So I want a 4502 with 2 readers, and I just want an R40, or I want a RK40, so in other words with a keypad, so I can do dual authentication. So you can do all that, and the fingerprint as well is there. Okay, switching gears a little bit, mobile. 2 slides, very simple. I'm not going to, that is a lot more information on this. I'm not going to dedicate a whole lot of time on this. I know this is a very dry subject. Sorry, folks. I hope to have some more of the devices for the next section where I can actually show you some of the devices, show you the operations and so on. So we'll see how that goes. So this is just heavy PowerPoint presentation. Again, as much as I don't like to do it, unfortunately, that's how it's going to go today. Just 2 slides in here. Just want to let you know it's there in case you need it. And I want to show you a picture so at least you know how this looks like. This is the mobile terminal. So with this, you can go and authenticate people, or you can check cards. You might have a security guard walking around, and they can go and authenticate or check someone that's trying to gain access in this area. So that's the device. This device basically will connect, is real-time connected with a local Wi-Fi network, and this will connect with the PIV check and process all the authentications that you would expect, same way you do with the desktop version. Okay. All right, that's it. If anyone needs more information on this, by all means, please get in contact with us and we'll provide you more details there. A little bit about on the readers. I think this is a little bit more useful or more important. So what kind of readers are out there today? So there is basically 3 types here that we can talk about. Standard R40, and that's one that I was talking about in the beginning, not long ago, the area with low risk, right? So low security needs. It's a heavy traffic area. I'm only interested in making sure that that card holder has a credential that is authentic. It's a card that's not being revoked, and that's good enough for me. So if that's the case, then I'm going to go with the R40 right here. If I need something with a little bit more a little bit more check, a little bit more secure, then I can go and use the this one here where I have to insert the card in the slot and enter the PIN number. Keep in mind, as I progress in the level of uh, uh, identification, as I increase the authentication factors, it will also increase the time it takes to open that door. So there's one thing I want to make sure of, that is need to make sure that you pick the right reader for the right application. Putting this reader here that requires you to enter the card, put a PIN number, and then your fingerprint there, it's probably not a good idea in your main entrance door. You're going to have a big line of people waiting just to get in the building. Okay, so really depends on the customer. Here is the PAM. We're talking about here how this works. So we got the PAM and Mercury 4502. PAM full duplex. So the reader communicates slightly different than it does with the 4502. So that is reader specific to each one of those. So we want to make sure that you're careful with that. Okay, but in essence, these are the basic type of readers that you're going to see in an application like this. Could be this one, or one where you insert the card and enter the PIN number for that particular card. So you authenticate that card, and with a biometric as well. Okay, here's the type of cards as you expect. The card with the PIN and bio are obviously the one that has more secure, has more checks and balances. I just put this in here so you have an idea. You will see this out there when it talks about the level of authentication that is required for those cards. And notice that even the ones here, so the revoked, right? Any of those cards will have the revoked. So it's easy to check. Is when you start to get to more specific types of solutions where, hey, I want to really make sure this is the rightful owner of that card, then you need to start to increase your level of authentication. Okay, and to recap, right there, those are the types of readers. I can even go with a simple R10 where all I'm doing is just presenting the card. Here's the R40. I can do an RP40, which I can enter the PIN and go full-blown 3 authentication factor depending on the location. So the nice thing about this is you do have options. So depending on the location, you can select which one makes more sense. Keep in mind that the long part number, the madness of the long part number has a meaning. And depending on the card, I would say get in contact with us and we will assist you at least in the beginning to get you the the part numbers that you would need for a job. Once you understand how this works, it's not that difficult. So here's a quick one, for example. If I'm using a PAM, so then I need a full duplex. So I want to make sure that my cards have a R, not a P. So here's the half duplex P, and then this is the type of reader, right? So an R10, R40, RK40, or a full-blown RKP CL, which has a display with contactless keyboard and fingerprint, right? So you would use that proximity and contactless, and so all that, even color, right? So you can determine all that. To give an idea, and this is my last slide, please, actually, no, there is one more. Contact us when you talk about this, when you're talking about selecting those cards. That is in our price list alone. And this is like some sort of a like reduced one. There's 750 PIV class readers, and this is just PIV class. There's 750 readers in our price list. So if you're new to this, please, by all means, contact us and make sure that we'll help you select the right readers. One thing I didn't put in here, I'm going to do this in the next video, but I think I need to emphasize the point. When you're ordering this product, that is a document from HID that you have to complete with certain information in there. If you don't do that document, the order will not be processed. So you'll see in our part numbers that there is a message that actually takes longer than the description of the product itself. It tells you, and it even has the link for where you need to go to download this PDF, you download it, and then you have to complete that form and send that in with your order so we can process that. HID will not process the order without that. And yours truly here learned that on the hard way, despite my product manager best effort to train me in completing the proper forms. Okay, so you need to complete those forms. We'll assist you, we'll let you know what it is, but just be aware that there is that procedure. Government wants to know, and this is one of the keys, the government wants to know who's purchasing this and where this equipment is being utilized. Okay, so with that being said, just for illustration, here it is some of the locations where PIV is being utilized. I would expect all these guys here, I think that goes without saying, but that was kind of surprise. British Petroleum, I guess their terminals and refineries, you can consider that as high secure, high sensitive facilities. So they do utilize, so see that's civilian, right? But they do utilize that level of authentication to make sure that people getting into those facilities are permitted in there. And this one that I never heard before. International Maddox tank terminals, I guess for oil tankers or terminals. So some of the things that are utilized in this type of technology. Okay. With that, let's take a look if we have any questions here to answer. My team seems to be pretty busy with it. Let me take a quick look here. Guys, anything here that you guys got some in here? Okay. It looks like the questions have been answered. Anything standing?
I think that's everything, Francisco.
We got it? Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for that.
No problem.
So, you in the line, Rob. What do you got for us on Wednesday?
Unification on Wednesday.
Awesome. So we're not such a dry subject as this one that I'm presenting. That's wonderful. Excellent. Ryan, you in the line? If not, it will be a surprise on Friday. So Wednesday, we'll go ahead and talk about what we're going to have on Friday, this Friday. And hopefully next Monday, I will have thanks, Rob. I will have the hardware already configured so I can go and show. I'm still missing a couple of components. That's why I haven't touched on that yet. If I don't have that, then we'll pick another subject and we'll go from there. Folks, thanks so much for joining us today. Wish you guys all a wonderful week. Please come and see us on Wednesday. Once again, Wednesday, noon Central Time. Wednesday will be noon Central Time. Friday, noon Pacific Time. Have a great day, everyone.